How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and it is time. We are getting into it. It is time for Chapter 12 of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and we're going to break it down. There's a lot of... It's a weird chapter. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, but at the same time, there's not, because a lot of it's side quest stuff, and yeah, it's good for the additional side stories and things like that, and it's good for character development between the characters in the party, but yeah. You'll see what I mean, Like, I've got like 5 hours of footage recorded here. This isn't going to be a 5-hour video, I guarantee it. So, let's jump into it. Don't forget, like the video, subscribe for future content. I really hope it isn't going to be a 5-hour video. My god, why have I said that? It's fine. Let's jump into it. So, at the end of the previous chapter, we've left Nibelheim, we've crashed in the tiny Bronco, and it's now the tiny Bronc boat? No, that doesn't work. But yeah, it's a boat now. And we begin chapter 12, travelling through the waters towards Costa del Sol. And there's a little bit of a spicy conversation between Cid and Barrett, where Barrett's kind of like, we don't take kindly to the company. And Cid's like, I don't take kindly to your tone. And quickly shuts that shit down from Barrett, which is nice. I appreciate it. But we carry on and we navigate about and we talk about Johnny and if he's sorted himself out. But we eventually reach Costa del Sol. Now, we get off the tiny Bronco at Costa del Sol, and there's a little bit of a conversation about, like, what we're going to do. We need to get to the Gold Saucer, and Cid ends up tagging along with us, and there's a couple of funny moments here where Cid gets a bit overly physical with Cloud, you know, like giving him a big slap on the shoulder and a pat on the back, and I'm just waiting for the time when Cloud takes it badly and kills him. I'm not looking forwards to it. He needs to understand that Cloud is in a very fragile mental state at this point. And it's only going to get worse, so, you know, ease up, Cid. Ease up. We don't want to see you lose a hand. We notice that Vincent's wandered off on his own, and Barrett makes the point, oh god, another loner, wonderful, as if one wasn't enough, and Cloud's like, yeah, one's more than enough. And then realises that he's definitely the loner. Bless him. Poor little Cloud. Anyway, it's at this point that we unlock an ungodly amount of side quests. It's not that bad, actually. It's like 1 or 2 side quests in each region, mostly 1 side quest in each region. The Corel region ends up picking up a few more than that, if I remember correctly. But we're going to smash through them all because we've got to get them all done. We have to get them all done. And I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure no part of this journey will result in me having to waste a few hours just trying to do 1 simple side quest. It'll be fine. So the plan is, we're going to start off in the Grasslands region. We're going to work through each area, hit all the side quests, clear them all, and then we'll come back to Corel last, because that's where the story continues at the Gold Saucer. So we'll kind of get Corel and the story all kind of done at the same time. I think that makes the most sense. So, we get started in the Grasslands region, and we head to Karn. And we find that there's a new employer in town. Let's put it that way, yeah. There is some new employment going, and Cloud decides that he's going to check it out and see if this is a career path for him. Now, Beck's Business isn't the most inventive name. I'm going to be honest, it's not the most inventive name that they've gone with, but it does the job. It is Beck's Business. It's more descriptive than a lot of company names, so, you know, I'm going to give him a pass. And Cloud goes through the interview process, answering questions. You can have a little bit of fun with it. But the whole time that you're going through this, Barrett's just kind of like, what are you doing? Why, Cloud? Why? I just don't think Barrett sees the big picture. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think he sees the big picture. But we'll get him there. We'll take him out on the first job because we complete our interview and we get given a job to go out onto the highway between Karn and Midgar and kill some stuff. This sounds good. This sounds doable. This is fine. So we head down the road, we fight a bunch of wolves, and then a rival gang turns up and just mocks Beck's butt munches. Not Beck's Business. The disrespect is strong. But basically another gang turns up, mocks them, we beat up the other gang, and then Beck's Business fuses with the other gang to become Beck's Bikers. It's just ludicrous, and Barrett clearly feels the same way, talking about the life that they're living. And Cloud shows his hand a little bit, because he says, you know, he's a bit jealous of him, and then he's like, psych. And it just kind of shows that Cloud obviously wasn't interested in being part of the business. He was just having a little bit of fun and seeing what they were up to. I think that was more what it was all about. But it was fun watching Barrett be completely confused for a quest. It was entertaining. It was fun. Anyway, moving on. And next up, we need to head to Junon Undercity, where the kids are a bit concerned about the upcoming war. So, there's no better cure for children being concerned about death and destruction than watching a man ride on a dolphin. Badly. I'm not even very good at this one. I'm not even very good at this one. Like, we did it, but it wasn't a good show. But seemingly watching Cloud fail under my control was still enough to cheer them up. If you do well on it, you get a slightly different conversation, but it's just basically, oh, you did well. Anyway, I enjoyed watching that. So, yeah, that's that quest. Yuffie tries to squeeze some materia orbs out of the children. I think she'd literally, physically try to squeeze the materia orbs out of the children if she thought there was a chance it'd happen. But, no, Yuffie ain't getting shit. Moving on. We do have another side quest in the Junon region, though. So, we're going to head out to an area where there is apparently a fiend knocking about. Yeah, a big fiend. A big scary fiend. And when we get there, we find the Midgar 7th Infantry. Oh yes. Yes we do. And they recognise Cloud, and everything's good, and we have a nice little reunion with them. And they don't question the fact that, you know, any of it. They don't question it. They just don't question it. And I like it. I appreciate their non-questioning ways. Because if they questioned it, we'd have to kill them. And we don't want to do that. So we decide to help them out. And we end up thrown into combat against a Hell Rider, which has obviously had some enhancements. Like Hojo or one of Hojo's little buddies have been doing some stuff with this thing. And we get this confirmed later on, but it's definitely come from the underwater reactor as well. So yeah, dodgy Shinra. Dodgy Shinra. Anyway, the Hell Rider runs off before we can kill it, makes us chase it, riding chocobos and everything like that, but we catch it eventually, we finish it off, and then we get to ask some questions of our commander. We find out that the 7th Infantry has been left behind in the Junon area, and based on another part of the conversation that we get in a second, where we find out that they were unable to get any reinforcements for this mission because they've been fraternising with the enemy, it seems like that's probably the same reason that they've been left behind in the Junon region. We also learn about the creature escaping from the underwater facility during a recent incident, and that the belief is that it was the Shinra Resistance Committee that had been involved. And basically what they're describing is Avalanche and Wutai and all the different facets of the resistance against Shinra in general, the way that different groups have different lines and will do certain things, all that sort of stuff, but nothing that we didn't particularly already know. Also, the commander kind of points out that she knows exactly who all of us are, and she's not going to say anything. She's going to claim the glory for what we've done, and, you know, we'll be fine. We will be fine. She's not going to tell anyone. But then the commander adjutant says something that's quite interesting. That, you know, as long as we all live, hopefully we'll see you again someday. Hopefully not on the field of battle. And it won't be on the field of battle. It'll be in a submarine, mate. Because this has got to end up being the submarine crew. Like, come on. Come on. Anyway. Moving on. I put a little bit extra into that one. Ooh. Next up, we head to Gongaga. And the first side quest that we have to do in this area is to help out Maeve, who is a children's book writer. Barrett knows who she is and gets a bit nerdy about it. Like, I think he wants an autograph and some selfies. Like, it's quite fun to see Barrett get like that, in fairness. And obviously it's something Marlene related, isn't it? Of course. But the basic gist of this quest is she thinks Red 13's cool, so we go and get pictures of Red 13 in specific poses, in specific locations, and that's going to give Maeve inspiration to write her next book or plan out her next book. It's as simple as that. It literally is as simple as that. Anyway, once we've finished with that, we head back to town. Maeve does some paintings. One of them definitely infringes on Lion King a little bit. You know, it strays a little bit close, so watch yourself, Maeve. Careful now. Disney will come and get you. They don't care if you're fictional or not. But Maeve finishes the quest by promising to send Barrett and Red 13 a copy of the book once it's finished. So, you know, good times. Good times. the next quest that we have to do in this area is to go on a little job for Cisne. Cisne has received some troubling reports about fiend activity in the area, so we head out to the observation tower, we whip out a pair of binoculars, we have a look, we see some disturbance, we go and kill a thing. Then we go back, we do it again, we kill a thing. And then we go back and we do it again, and guess what? We kill a thing. Now once we've killed the final thing, a big gigantode, Cisne turns up and we get to ask a question. Now you get 3 choices of question. The first one, who are you waiting for? She basically says that she's waiting for Zack, but without actually saying his name. And she says that she's pretty confident that he's gone, as in dead. But she also wouldn't be surprised if he showed up tomorrow. It doesn't feel like he's gone. And that she feels responsible because she stole a part of his life. So yeah, that's probably the most interesting question, to be honest with you. Like, the other questions aren't that much. Like, if you ask her what it is that she's hiding from us, she points out to Cloud that she has met him before, but then when he asks when, she's like, one question. So you don't really get that much out of that. And then the who are you really question is basically dancing around the fact that she's a Turk, but if you've done the proto-relic side quest, you already know that she's a Turk, so pretty pointless question. Basically she says, just don't talk about it around the villagers, I don't want people knowing that I'm a Turk, because it's not cool. You know, they all like me, they'd probably like me less, I'm gonna guess is the vibe. But yeah, just a little bit of general fleshing out from Cisne. Like I say, the most interesting thing is that first question, and it is the fact that she's already said to us that she feels responsible for taking away a part of Zack's life. And I feel like the fact that she's staying here in Gongaga and kind of looking after Gongaga is probably reflective of that she feels guilty about Zack and about how things went down. So she's kind of resolved to stay in Gongaga and protect it. I'd also guess that there's going to be a degree of company involvement in that. They're quite happy to just leave Cisne to watch over the Gongaga region. So yeah, that's probably the most interesting bit, and the quest finishes off with Cisne being a little bit ominous about the world, and she says that the world of ours is about to change. And, you know, it's been on the wall for a while now, the signals have been there, but now we're here, and shit's about to go down. So, yeah, pretty ominous finish to the quest, until she kind of teases Aerith and Cloud a little bit. She's kind of like, oh, I see what Zack saw in you now, to Aerith, and Aerith's like, oh? And then she turns to Cloud and she's like, yeah? And Cloud's like, yeah? Confused. It's just a weird little moment, but yeah, she's having fun. You know what I'm about to say. Moving on. And we move on to the Cosmo region, and we have to go and help someone in a jeep that's stuck in the desert looking for worms or something like that. It sounds pretty weird, but when we get there, we meet Jige from the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission DLC. We catch up with him a little bit, we find out about how he felt about Platefall, the fact that he lost some people in Platefall, but they got a lot of people out as well, and how the whole thing was just super traumatic, which makes complete sense. He also seems to react very positively to Colonel Lodbrok and his little speech on the TV, so he's on board with the whole SRC thing. And we also find out that Neo and the others have kind of stayed in Cosmo Canyon to brush up on their planetology after the group of them escaped from Midgar together. And I'm really quickly going to touch on the Proto-Relic quest, just super quick, because it kind of ties into this, so why not? We've got 2 minutes. So the Proto-Relic quest focuses around the Gears and Gambits game, and I'm going to ignore that in general. What we are going to focus on, though, is the fact that we bump into Neo and the others from the Avalanche cell that we dealt with in Intermission. And we learn a little bit about what went on in Midgar, and we learn a little bit about what went on with Wedge, because Barrett's just immediately like, yo, what happened to Wedge? Were you with him? Did you see him? Do you know what happened? Just tell me. So we get the story. And the story's quite interesting at the start of it, especially because we find out that there are multiple teams that are attacking the Shinra building seemingly towards the end of Remake, and we learn that they've lost contact with Lucia's team, and that they need to check in with Matt. Now, hearing the names Lucia and Matt together should immediately make you think of the first soldier from Ever Crisis, because Glenn's compatriots in that game are Matt and Lucia. And Baby Sephiroth, of course. But Matt and Lucia are, the 2 people that are deployed out there with Glenn. And I would assume They are the two people that we saw with Glenn in that little grainy cutscene that we saw back in chapter 7, 8, something like that. My immediate assumption upon seeing those scenes was, oh, that's Matt and Lucia. Why are Matt and Lucia looking like that? What's happened? That was my immediate reaction to it. But then we get this scene here, which seems to confirm that Matt and Lucia are active and in Midgar during the events of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Anyway, we continue pressing on, and Wedge, along with the group that are with him in this van during the scene, they are heading up to the tower of the Shinra building to deal with President Shinra. And it shows a definite shift in mentality from the main branch of Avalanche. Potentially after the plate fell, but also potentially after maybe Matt and Lucia get involved. It could be either, it could be both, we'll see. But I will say at the very least it does make complete sense that Avalanche stepped it up a notch after Shinra murdered all those people. So, you know, it's maybe not as sus as I'm making it, but Matt and Lucia being involved, weird. If it is them, it could be different people called Matt and Lucia, but it probably isn't. Anyway, Wedge breaks away from the group and goes to get Mayor Domino to help him get in touch with everybody and let him know what's going on. That message that we received from Wedge when we're in Aerith's childhood bedroom. That's the scene that's going on there. Afterwards, we cut outside, we see explosions, we see Neo and the rest of the little Splinter Cell group back up together, and then we see the second half of the scene that we saw in Remake. So in Remake, we see the Whispers start swirling around Wedge, drag him out the window, but then we don't see anything after that. Here, we see the Whispers dragging Wedge down to the ground, and like, they spike him. It is aggressive, and the noise he makes, ugh. But yeah, we get to see the end of that scene with Wedge. And the end of Wedge. We cut back to Barrett. Barrett's obviously distraught to hear this, but then he's certain that he hears Wedge speaking to him on the wind. And this sets us up then to help out with fixing these live stream fonts that exist around Cosmo Canyon's area. And we have to play Gears and Gambits using the amazing Robo-Chad. Basically though, as we go through the quest, we get to see a cutscene that shows an evening where they invented some cocktails together, they talked about going to Cosmo Canyon, and it's just like a fun bonding scene between Barrett, Tifa, Biggs, Wedge and Jesse. And yeah, it's cool. It's pretty cool. I'm not going to dive too deep into it. The main thing that we really want out of this one is, at the start, the fate of Wedge, essentially. You know, we've had that confirmed to us now. But yeah, it's a nice little scene. And at the end of the quest, Cloud, Tifa and Barrett like send up one of those lanterns each that we saw earlier on in the Cosmo Canyon chapter. And yeah, that's that. There is a lot more stuff that goes on in this Proto-Relic side quest, but we'll talk about that in the Proto-Relic video that I'm going to be working on soon. I just thought I'd throw that little bit of confirmation about what went down with Wedge in there, because it's reasonably important. Anyway, back to GJ. We run around, we track down this worm, we fight it, it runs away, we chase it, we fight it, all of that sort of stuff. And then at the end of it, GJ comes over, thanks us, and says that he's heading off to Wutai before the borders all get closed. So that's interesting. We're almost certainly going to be heading to Wutai in part 3, so that tells me that we're going to be catching up with GJ when we get over there. Looking forward to that. We also have a moment where Yuffie and GJ talk about Sonon briefly. Sad times, sad times. But yeah, this quest, pretty quick, pretty easy. Just follow the worm. Yeah, just follow the worm. Moving on. The next quest is we head back to Nibelheim, and we hear reports of a strange noise coming out of the basement of the Shinra Manor. That was my best impression. That's as good as it gets. But yeah, weird noises coming out of the basement of the Shinra Manor. So we go there and we investigate, and Vincent gives us a little guided tour down there, you know, shows us the scenes, makes us aware of the pitfalls, and yeah, there's a few pitfalls, there's a few. But it's not too difficult, you know, you smash your way through there, you complete the trials, you kill the things, you're being goaded constantly by another one of those fun little Hojo holograms, the Hojograms. And we also chat to Vincent about what sort of stuff went on in the past, and he gives us some clues as to the kind of experiments that went on and how he was the bodyguard to 2 of the scientists that worked here. And Barrett kind of throws a little bit of shade in the direction of Lucretia, because he's obviously talking about Hojo and Lucretia. And Vincent says that, you know, she always did what the good professor told her to do. And Barrett just kind of says, well, she can't be up to much either if she's just going along with it, you know what I mean? And Vincent did not like that. Vincent hated that. Hated it. But it's true. Fuck Lucretia. She's awful. We finish off the quest by beating up another one of Hojo's pet toys, another weird Genova experimented monster. And once we've killed it, Vincent points out to us that even fiends can have feelings too. The fuck, Vincent? Barrett says, yeah, you've got to have mercy for all life, but you've got to draw the line somewhere. I personally draw that line at spiders. Don't know about you, but if they come near me, they get murderfied. Oh yes, they do. Oh yes, they do. Anyway, Hojo uninstalls himself again because he's done now. And we're just kind of left to poke around in the basement. There's nothing here though. So, moving on. And it's at this point, all we've got left is stuff to do in the Corel region. So, I think it's time to go and take care of the main story. So, we head to the Gold Saucer. And when we get there, Kate Sith pulls us to one side and lets us know that no one that goes into the temple ever comes out again. You know, just a little detail that Kate Sith omitted in previous discussions. So that's fun. That's fun. That's not ominous in the slightest. But regardless, we've got a job to do. We've got a planet to save. So we're going to go and find Dio, because Dio is the man who knows where the Keystone is. And if you know Dio, you know where he's going to be. Is at Battle Square. So we're going to head there. And on the way in, we see a poster for an event. Corneo versus Dio. What could be going on here? And when we go to chat to Dio, he's looking a little bit beaten up. It seems that the fight against Rude did not go how he was hoping it would go. So, yeah, poor Dio. Poor Dio. But we explain the situation to Dio, we ask him for the Keystone, and he says that we can have it based on the fact that Aerith's like, excuse me, I'm a Cetra, I'll be taking that. But we can only have it on the condition that we take part in the special event that's about to happen, which is Don Corneo and his crew versus Dio. And it's the battle for naming rights. And if Don Corneo's team wins the battle, then the Gold Saucer will be renamed to Corneo Land and will be under Don Corneo's control, it would seem. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that's going to be a good idea. I don't think that's going to be a good idea. Corneo Land, it's not as catchy as the Gold Saucer, is it? It's not got the same ring. And plus, you know, Don Corneo's a bit of a dodgy guy. It'll probably go badly. So yeah, we're not going to allow that. We're going to help Dio out. We're going to stick it to Don Corneo. And we're going to get the Keystone all in one big movement. It's going to be nice. It's going to be nice. What could go wrong, eh? What could go wrong? And I've got to say, Scotch and Koch, brilliant all the way through this section of the game, just like they were in the Wall Market segments in Remake. I get the feeling they had a lot of fun with Scotch and Koch whenever they were doing anything Don Corneo related. Like, it comes through that they had fun with it, I think. So, obviously, we're going to agree to help. You know, we've got to help our Dio out. And then after that, we head to Go Square so that we can get a room at the hotel and just rest up. Now, as Cloud's heading up to his room, we see a little scene between Aerith and Kate Sith where Aerith's writing a song and Kate Sith's trying to be nosy, and I think Aerith maybe beats Kate Sith up at the end of this scene. I think that's what happens. But Cloud heads upstairs, gets to bed, and gets a little nap. And what we see for a moment is the other world. Through his eyes, we see Marlene tending Aerith. So there's definitely a connection with Cloud that's been shown over and over throughout the game. When he goes to sleep, he seems to be able to perceive the other world. And while Cloud's having his sleep, we get the scenes between Marlene and Zack, and where Marlene talks about how if Aerith wakes up, then she's going to die, because Cloud's going to try to save her, but he's not going to be able to, he's not going to get there in time. And Zack sort of comes across like he doubts this a little bit, but Marlene's adamant that this is what's going to happen, and she saw it. And I feel like this is one of the strongest indications that we've had so far, and I think it remains to be one of the strongest indications that the white materia is currently holding all of those future memories and everything like that, because in Rebirth, Red 13 and Aerith have lost those memories, and her copy of the white materia is empty, whereas in this alternate world, the Terrier timeline, the white materia has kind of kept its essence, and at the same time, Marlene has retained her access to the memories that she got when she came into contact with Aerith. So, very much an indication for me that the white materia is kind of holding these memories. But at the same time, when the white materia is brought back into this world, why do we not then see Red 13 and Aerith regain access to these memories? I mean, I'd argue that Aerith probably does, but I don't remember any indication that Red 13 does. We'll double check, we're going to be going through the next 2 chapters in the next 2 videos, but yeah, I just thought it was an interesting point to make. The white materia seems to be the vessel for these memories, and it seems like we're potentially going to see some sort of additional function for the white and black materia beyond the functions that they quite obviously have. That'd be interesting as well if we got to see something like that. But anyway, Zack probes a little bit deeper with Marlene into the memory of what's going on, and she tells Zack that the person that's going to come and kill Aerith is Sephiroth, which leaves Zack a little bit stunned. Next we cut outside and we get a scene stood on the hill where all the flowers are, or were because they're all dead. Except they're not. There's a small patch of the flowers that have started to bloom again, and Elmira comes out and her and Zack are talking about it, and Elmira wonders if this means that Aerith's going to wake up soon. And we do know that Aerith does wake up soon, in about a chapter's time, so there is a very strong chance that that is what these flowers blooming is indicating, you know, that Aerith's consciousness is going to awaken in this world. But I don't know, I've got a feeling that there might be something else to it. I'm not 100% sure what, whether it's maybe to do with Zack's actions in this world, potentially. It's going to be one of those things that needs a little bit more thought, I think, because there's got to be some reason why these flowers have started to come back to life. Because Aerith and Cloud coming back to this world, or not even to this world, to a different world, but Aerith and Cloud's consciousness returning to one of these worlds is a sudden event. It doesn't particularly feel like it's something that's been built up to. I mean, it has in a lot of ways, but do you know what I mean? I don't know if it's something that would cause indications like this to appear. I don't know, it depends. If there is still some sort of thread of fate and destiny that is holding on, one that has maybe accounted for all of the events that have transpired in Remake and Rebirth up to this point, maybe it could be. You know, Destiny and Fate knows what's going to happen at the temple, and therefore knows that Aerith and Cloud's consciousnesses are going to be available to come into these worlds. I don't know, I just thought it was something interesting to take note of. Zack and Elmira talk a little bit more, and Zack says that he's going to go and see someone who can maybe help, meaning that he's going to go to the Shinra building and try and find Hojo, and get Hojo to help. Ugh. I mean, just saying those words is painful to me. And Elmira's just basically flinging herself at Zack here. It's awful to watch. I'm joking. It's pretty funny though. There is a bit of a vibe between Zack and Elmira here. There is a little bit of a vibe, sparks flying, you know. Don't know what's going on. I'm a little bit confused by it. But anyway, Zack eventually heads off to the motorcycle that he's got stored at the end of the road. And when he gets there, he finds a note from Biggs. And Biggs basically says, yeah, cool, cheers mate, I'm going to go blow a reactor up. And I'm a little bit annoyed that he's chosen Reactor 6. You know, don't come and blow my reactor up. That's my reactor. That's Sector 6's reactor. Stop it. But Zack realises what he's doing and sprints off. And this is the event that kind of leads to several different Zacks now going off in different directions in different worlds. And we'll get into that in the next couple of chapters. But yeah, this seems to be the event that kind of forces that split. Because you've got a Zack that needs to help Aerith and Cloud. You've got a Zack that needs to go and see Hojo at the Shinra building. And then you've got a Zack that needs to go to reactor number 6 and stop Biggs. And it feels like this is the moment that creates that split. So, interesting times. But anyway, Cloud wakes up, and we get the second part of the date. And like I said in the previous one that we did, we're going to go with Aerith again because it's the most story-relevant one. We will do a full video, I think, breaking down all of the other dates. I was just going to quickly fly through them now, but I think we'll just give the whole date mechanic thing its own video in the same way that we have done with the proto-relics, and in the same way that we are doing with Chadley-based things, do you know what I mean? So keep an eye out for that one. We're going to do the Aerith date, though, because, like I say, it's the story date. It's the one that makes sense. Anyway, we head to Event Square, and we go to watch Loveless. And as we go to sit down, we hear over the tannoy, can make 'em bloom find a member of staff? Make 'em bloom. So Aerith heads over to find some staff, and she gets told something and seems quite excited. And straight after that, we jump into the performance of Loveless. and we get to see Jessie. And Jessie is pretty much playing the lead role in this operatic performance of Loveless, and it goes through this depiction of Loveless, and it shows this depiction of the big mechanical city, which we later learn is Guardia, and it shows people kind of in turmoil crawling around outside it and in front of it. But then it shows the goddess coming down from above and bringing her blessing for those below. And the imagery is quite interesting, and one of the first things that you see is we get the whole rainbow effect going on, which very soon in the game will be used consistently to depict other worlds and traveling between worlds and things to that effect. So what this depiction is saying to us is that a goddess came from the skies, potentially from another world. That's what it begins to suggest to me, obviously with the context of the ending of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And if you couple that with the possibility that the goddess is Jenova, which isn't something that's massively outlandish, and it's something that we will be looking at further in the next chapter breakdown when we get to the Temple of the Ancients. But if you were to take those depictions and kind of put them hand in hand like they are here, the suggestion is that Jenova came from another world, which maybe ties in with what we saw in Cosmo Canyon with the Gi. I think maybe I'm connecting one too many dots there, but it's a possibility. We do need some sort of explanation for the Gi, and just this imagery of the goddess coming down with that whole world-bending effect going on in the background. It's very, very evocative of those kinds of thoughts, and kind of makes me go back to thinking, did Jenova bring the Gi here accidentally when she was traversing the worlds? Anyway, the story continues. We learn about the three who come to claim the goddess's boon, and we see the three of them. In red we have the hero, in white we have the wanderer, and in blue we have the prisoner. And we first see the hero get slain, and then we see the wanderer get slain, but then we see the prisoner kind of falls down of their own accord, and then the goddess dances, and the prisoner seems to be okay. And in some ways this mirrors the events of Crisis Core, and in some ways it doesn't. It's a little bit of a confusing one overall, Loveless. I am probably going to do a full video breaking down Loveless and looking at it from Crisis Core and Rebirth, because the G edition that we're getting right now is not exactly the same. So yeah, we're probably going to do that. We're probably going to look at Loveless in its entirety, kind of as its own sort of thing. But at the same time, it tends to be a more Crisis Core centric thing, and I don't know how important it is going forward in Rebirth. So we'll have a little think about it, but once we finish with the scenes that I so eloquently described moments earlier, we get into the audience participation section of this. And what this replicates is the secret date event from Final Fantasy VII, where you'd go up there and you'd play this scene that we're about to do now out, but using chat box selections and walking up to certain characters and interacting with them at certain times on the stage. Obviously not as funky as this, but it was still fun then, and it's still fun now. It's a good time, and it continues on this story with Alfred being one of the wanderers that's looking for the goddess's blessing, but instead Alfred has found himself in a prison cell. So we need to get out of that prison cell, and the Princess Rosa, played by Aerith, comes along and busts us out of prison. We end up outside in an area, I would assume that's part of the city of Guardia, and we've got Red 13 and Barrett playing Garm and the Dragon King Varvados respectively, and we end up taking part in a very fun, it's visually really cool, but you're also trying to pay attention on the button presses, so you don't really get to watch it as much as you'd probably like to. There are a few different options that you can make. Some of them are funny, some of them change the way certain parts go. And in between the first combat scene, we get a little bit of chat from Cait Sith about how Alfred must have been given a slither of the goddess's power, and I feel like at this point we're kind of talking pretty directly about Cloud and Aerith now. And I think we're talking about the goddess being Jenova. Cloud has obviously got a slither of Jenova's power. But then we get to ask Cait Sith about our future with Rosa. And the response that we get, it's not the best. It's very much similar to in the first time we were at the Gold Saucer, where we get the fortune and we get the whole, you will find what you're looking for, but something dear to you will be lost. And it's very similar to that, where Cait Sith says that every chance encounter ends with a tearful goodbye. And again, I think we're directly talking about Cloud and Aerith at this point. So that's kind of what this has become now. It's kind of symbolically giving us hints to what is going to happen in the final stages of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We press on and we choose Rosa as our beloved, obviously. Although it can get pretty funny if you choose Garm or Varvados. That can be quite entertaining. But then we press on and we do the final phase of the fight. And once again, we're getting that symbology for Aerith and Cloud right now. Because we see Aerith, well, we see Alfred and Rosa face off against Varvados and Garm. And what do we see later on in the game? We see Cloud and Aerith alone facing off against Sephiroth. And it's very symbolic in my mind of what's going on in Rebirth. Like, I think the first part of it, the whole operatic part of the Loveless performance, was definitely more steered towards what we already know. So, you know, the hero, the wanderer, the prisoner, Zack, Angeal, Genesis, Sephiroth, all of that connection, the gift of the goddess, everything like that. Whereas this final bit is much more about the back end of Rebirth and what we are about to venture into, pretty much. And Barrett's final lines, well, Varvados' final lines at the end of this, where he refers to Alfred as a puppet of fate and destiny, and how he should dance until his strings break and he can dance no more. Yeah, very, 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 very suggestive of what's going on with Cloud and Aerith, just in general what's going on at the end of Rebirth. I am going to do a longer video looking further into Loveless and spending a bit more time thinking about it. At the minute, it's just kind of in the middle of this video. We're going to keep moving. But yeah, there's going to be more. There's going to be more. These are very much initial thoughts on Loveless. It needs its own video, especially this newer section towards the back end. It's very suggestive of things that happen at the end of Rebirth. And we even get what looks like the universe of creation in the sky at the end of it. So yeah, lots to talk about. But then after that, we move into the final phase of the performance, which is Aerith singing No Promises to Keep. And I'm not going to dive too deep into the song. Like, it's very much a song about, like, Aerith, Cloud, very much Aerith and Cloud. And we get some live stream vibes going on in the crowd where we see Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge, who, as far as we all know, they're all dead. It's interesting that Biggs shows up in that moment. Very interesting that Biggs shows up in that moment. Maybe I'm being dumb there, though. I don't know what I'm expecting. Maybe I'm expecting Biggs to not appear because he's existing in the Terrier world. Maybe that's what I'm expecting, and I don't necessarily think it would work like that. So, yeah, probably not. We also see Chadley in the crowd as well, which is nice. He seems like he's having a good time. Crazy little weird cyborg he is. And then the performance finishes, and Cloud goes up to Aerith, who's clearly... She's a bit drained, but also a bit overwhelmed. A little bit, it seems like, so Cloud goes over to support her. And then we all take a bow in front of everybody that we know and love. It's a very weird moment, this. It's genuinely, the end of this is a little bit weird. Like, all the family and friends have just kind of appeared out of nowhere, whether they're in the live stream or not, and they're all giving us a round of applause. Feels a little bit weird and convenient, but maybe I'm just being overly suspicious. I don't know. It's all in VR anyway, so maybe it does kind of tap into your memories to an extent in order to create the audience. I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, we pop out of VR, we catch up with Aerith, and we head outside. And Aerith's absolutely buzzing. She says that the experience is life-changing and that she might get into music as a professional. Who knows? Anyway, we head over to the Sky Wheel and we get the date. And the date begins very similarly to how it does in the OG, with Cloud sitting opposite from Aerith, you know, not getting close to her. But then within seconds, Aerith's like, oh no, I fell over in the middle of the cabin. Cloud catches her and they're both in the middle. And Cloud seems to have relaxed a little bit more importantly. Now, we get to see all the same stuff that we saw in the OG. We get the Chocobo racing, we get the Speed Square stuff, we get the fireworks and everything like that. But then we get to the conversation between Aerith and Cloud, and with Aerith letting Cloud know how much he reminds her of him, meaning Zack. And it was everything. It was like the way that he carried himself and things like that. But she now realizes that he's not Zack and she wants to be with him. But she's trying to find him. And this is because there's only brief moments where Cloud, real Cloud, kind of shines through. And other than that, it is still Cloud, but it's a facade. It's like a fake version of Cloud. It's not Zack, but it's also not Cloud. It's kind of some weird merge of the two. So Aerith's still trying to find the real Cloud and still reach the real Cloud. And at this point, Cloud asks Aerith if Tifa brought anything up to her, basically trying to check if the information that he remembered about Zack going down the river and drowning in the previous chapter had made its way back to Aerith. Aerith definitely has been told about this by Tifa, but she doesn't tell Cloud about that because she's not trying to destabilize Cloud too much at the minute, because she definitely does understand what's going on with Cloud. Especially between her and Tifa, the two of them will have been able to like kind of converge and be like, yeah, he's not right, something's not right here, we need to fix him. But we do get a glimpse of the real Cloud, I think. And it's in this moment where Aerith's kind of leaned on his shoulder and she's grabbed his arm, and he kind of takes her hand and holds her hand. And he doesn't look at her properly, he just kind of gives her this little shy side eye while he's holding her hand at first. And this feels very much like this is the real Cloud showing through for a moment. And Aerith recognises that, and that's why she smiles and she's so happy in the moment, and she wants to kind of stay in that moment for a little bit longer, because she's reached him a little bit. That's what I took from these scenes, at least, anyway. Now at this point, the day ends, and we get ready to go into the next day and the battle against Don Corneo and the boys. But before we can get to that, we cut to a scene of a helicopter on the landing strip at Junon, and in it we've got the Turks, and they're talking about the Promised Land and the Temple being one and the same. So Shinra's of the belief that the Temple of the Ancients is the Promised Land, and they're using the fact that we are heading there as their motivation to go there themselves. But they also seem to know that the Keystone is being awarded for the winner of today's special event at the Gold Saucer. They've got good intel gathering, these Turks. They've got real good intel gathering. But yeah, Rufus is there and he's got an idea. So I'm sure you can see how this is going to pan out. We get ourselves together and we head to Battle Square to take part in the battle for naming rights. And it's as ludicrous as you expected. Like, it genuinely is as ludicrous as you expected. Dio opens things off with his usual flair and panache, but then Scotch, Koch and Don Corneo turn up and ruin the whole thing with whatever this is. Whatever this is. It ain't good. But it's funny. It's not good, but it's funny. And Scotch and Koch are genuinely entertaining. But we eventually get going, and it's very much the same sort of vibe as it was back in Final Fantasy VII Remake when we were in Wall Market and we were dealing with the Colosseum there. The fights are slightly more entertaining because of the little Don Corneo hairdos that we keep seeing on things. Like the Don Corneo cactuar is possibly the cutest thing that I've ever seen. And the Don Tombre, well, I mean, come on. Now, somehow we get through these fights and we eventually fight Don Corneo along with Abzu as the final fight. And again, we beat him up. There's not really much else to say here. Don Corneo runs away after he's defeated, and we win the fight for naming rights, and Dio is very, very happy. So happy, in fact, that he's about to give us the Keystone until them sneaky Turks jump in and grab it. Now, there's a little bit of messing about with fighting over the Keystone, but in the end, Cait Sith plays their hand and shows themselves to be the duplicitous little bastard that we all knew they were by taking the Keystone and running. Ooh, I'm angry. I'm so angry. We get ready to face off against Rude and Alina, with Cloud, Aerith and Tifa staying behind while everybody else heads off to chase after Cait Sith. Now, as I'm sure you already know, we beat the Turks up because that's what you do, you beat the Turks up. And at the end of it, the Turks look like they've kind of got the shit back together. Rude's like, okay, this fight's not over. But then the lights cut, and Rufus raises up out of the ground, and oh my god, we've got to fight Rufus again. Like, genuinely, in Remake, the Rufus fight was my least favourite fight. It caused me a lot more stress than it should have done. And again, in Rebirth, it's possibly my least favourite fight again. There's just something about the Rufus combat strat that just burns me. I hate it. I hate it so very much. Now, Rufus appears and points out to Cloud that he is still technically on the box and still a Shinra employee. So as his boss, Rufus figured that he'd come out here and deal with us personally. Like, I worry for the staff in the Shinra building. I mean, I already did in general. They're in the same building as Hojo. But, like, now Rufus has taken charge, I think things have just got a lot worse. Anyway, we finish beating Rufus up and he does a runner as per usual. He's not going to stick about and take the proper defeat that he deserves. So Rufus and Darkstar leave and we go on the hunt looking for Cait Sith. And it's a whole thing. Every now and again you'll catch glimpses of Cait Sith running around, diving behind things, hiding behind people, running about. You have to talk to the party and they'll kind of nudge you in the right direction. But eventually we catch up with Cait Sith on the helipad, handing the Keystone over to Sung. And immediately Barrett's all over him like, what was I doing trusting you? And Barrett's ready to finish the job. Barrett's ready to just fill Cait Sith with bullets and walk away. But in the end, he just walks away. And eventually, everybody walks away. Except for Aerith, who initially goes to comfort Cait Sith, but then Cloud's kind of like, no, this is deserved. And we all leave. And Cait Sith leaves the party. Never trust cats, especially Scottish ones. Just don't trust them. Don't tell MJ I said that either. Also, is there anything to the fact that Aerith wanted to kind of go over and forgive Cait Sith or comfort Cait Sith? Is there any kind of lingering memory, maybe, that Aerith knows who Cait Sith is, somehow subconsciously? Who knows? Anyway, we discover that we've got a bit of a problem now, because Cait Sith is our guide to the temple. But Vincent comes up with a solution where he's basically going to listen in to the radio frequencies that the Turks use, and that's going to enable us to find the Temple of the Ancients. And when we get there, Cloud is definitely not going to be weird about the black materia or anything like that. Everything's going to be fine. Anyway, we need to head to Costa del Sol, and we've got a few side quests that we need to wrap up, just so that we can make sure we've got everything wrapped up in a neat little bow, and all of the side quests are done. So let's get back to the side quests. And the first one is in Costa del Sol. We go have a chat with Mayor Capono, and he's got a few things to say. First off, he tells us that he fully expects Johnny to fail miserably, which, you know, that's fair. That's fair. He also lets us know how he allowed Shinra to do their thing and Hojo to do their thing, and received a sizable donation from Shinra, which probably sits in his safe right now. We'll get to that later. But yeah, he's basically asked Kyrie to do some work, and Kyrie's done what Kyrie does, which is nothing, and wait for us to appear, so we can do the work. And that's exactly how it pans out. We end up going out there and doing the work for Kyrie. But then once we've finished, we head back to her and we decide to have a little bit of fun, wind her up a little bit, you know, tell her that we've been sent to deal with her. And she panics a little bit and tries to make excuses and stuff like that, but eventually she gets saved by Murray, the angel of the slums, and yeah, Murray tells Kyrie to stop being shit, basically, and get back to Midgar now. So we go to tell Mayor Capono what's gone on, and while we're there letting him know that we've got rid of Kyrie, she's left. She's not dead, she's left. And Capono's like, oh, well, I'd prefer you to kill her, but okay. Dick he is. But he then receives word that the safe has been emptied. And quite obviously, the little bit of dirt that Kyrie was talking about when she walked off with Murray has clearly led to them going and emptying his safe, which, you know, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Moving on. Next up, we head back to the Gold Saucer, and Billy is there looking for someone to enter the Gold Cup on his behalf, and, you know, obviously we're going to do that. Prior to the race as well, we get a little bit of conversation between Sam and Billy, with Sam promising that if we win the race, he will tell Billy the truth about what happened to his parents. Anyway, it's a 3-part race, and we make Joe look like the absolute chump he is, you know. He needs to be put in his place, so we do that. And then after the race, Sam tells Billy the truth about everything, and we find out that his parents were very much into Chocobo conservation. But because of that approach that they took towards Chocobo raising, they didn't really make any money. Because, you know, conservation. You don't really make any money out of that. So they ended up going to like loan sharks and getting into debt and everything like that, and in the end, they ended up turning to Don Corneo, who at that point was taking people and sending them to Shinra for their experiments. So pretty much what's happened here is they've buried themselves in debt trying to run a Chocobo conservation to the point where bad things were going to happen to them, so they gave themselves to Don Corneo, who gave the family money to pay off the debts, but then Billy's parents obviously got taken to Shinra. And are probably one of the Black Cloaks we've been wandering around past, let's be completely honest, if they're lucky. Unlucky? Is it lucky or unlucky? I don't know. Anyway, Sam ends up giving the conservation business back to Billy, and he even offers him some startup capital, so that he can keep it moving and not end up in the same situation that his parents were in. But Billy refuses, saying that he's going to do it on his own 2 feet, and yeah, a wholesome end to the story. I don't think I could have handled it if Sam had have ended up being a bad guy. I don't think I could have dealt with that. Anyway, moving on. We've got 2 more side quests left to do. The first one involves us bumping into someone else that we've not seen since Midgar, and that is Leslie. Now, Leslie's found himself over to the Dust Bowl underneath the Gold Saucer, and Solemn Gus has apparently put on like a special Colosseum contest with a woman as the prize, and the woman has apparently fled from Midgar. So that's immediately got Leslie thinking like, oh, it's her. Oh my god, it's her. But Leslie went in there and got the shit kicked out of him. So we're going to go in on Leslie's behalf and, kill some stuff, because that's what we do. We kill stuff. And after we've killed some stuff, Gus tries to get us to join him and win some fights in the Gold Saucer and do some chocobo races, but we're not interested in you, Gus. And then Tifa walks over and gives him a little kick for being a horrible piece of shit and offering people as prizes. You know how it goes. But it turns out that the person that we rescued was just some random tourist from Midgar, and Leslie didn't find the person that he needed. So, yeah, bit of a weird one. This kind of feels like this was an afterthought, maybe. I'm going to be honest. This quest feels like an afterthought. Like, shit, we need to do something with Leslie. I've not got anything to do with Leslie. There's got to be something we can do with Leslie. No, I don't think there is. Should we just make him stand outside a Colosseum for a bit? Yeah, go on then. And I genuinely feel like that's the way that this whole conversation went down. Moving on. And we're moving on to the finale of Chapter 12 and the last side quest in the game, pretty much. I mean, you've still got proto-relic stuff in Chapter 13, but it's not really a side quest, is it? It's his own thing. So yeah, this is the final side quest, and it's a pretty fitting side quest. Now, the gist of it is, the Shinra middle manager has taken some time off to clear his head after becoming very sad with everything at Shinra, and I'm still waiting for him to go postal at some point. It is coming. Like, in part 3, I think this guy snaps, and we're going to see some crazy shit. But that's a different video. In this video, he's kind of on the brink, but he's masking it still with fun. And that's what we do. We mask it with fun. So, we go around and we beat the Shinra middle manager at everything. Now, some of these things are quite easy. The Queen's Blood, pretty easy. The G-Bike was pretty easy. Speed Square caused me some problems. Speed Square was the one that caused me problems this time, and I don't know why. The battle arena stuff can be a little bit rough as well if you're not ready to deal with the group of 10 Tomberries. Like, that's the one that's going to mess you up, the 10 Tomberries. So, safety bits. Make sure you equip some safety bits. The Chocobo racing was a little bit rough as well, with the gates opening and closing. Like, I always mess the timing up. But you get, like, the metal Chocobo song while you're doing it. So it's kind of worth doing the same thing over and over again just to listen to the metal Chocobo song. I'm into it. But we finish off this side quest with the 3D Battler, and it's a little bit of a difficult one, but like, if you know how to play 3D Battler, you'll be able to beat the middle manager. Like, he's not as difficult as Sephiroth or any of them. So yeah, we put him in his place, we beat him at all the games, we let him know that we are the ultimate party animal, not him. And he takes it well, and we're quite gracious in victory as well. So, it's pretty nice. Then Cloud does some weird breakdancing. I don't know how I feel about the breakdancing, Cloud. Not sure about it. But, it's a thing that exists now. It's a thing that's happened in universe. Cloud breakdancing with a sword on his back. God damn it. Anyway, we have a little bit of a chat with the middle manager after the weird breakdancing moment, and we go to give him a high five, but then he receives a call from the company, and he's straight back in. I mean, partially because his assistant's in tears, crying, begging him to come back and, save the day, be a middle manager, protect the lower people from the upper people, and that's pretty much what he says he's going to do. So he leaves, but I guarantee that that is not the end of the Shinra middle manager. We will see much more of him going forwards into part 3. But with all of the side quests in the game completed now, there is but one thing left to do, and that is head to Costa del Sol and board the tiny Bronco so that Vincent can try and do his thing and track the radio signals so that we can find out where the Temple of the Ancients is. And straight afterwards we cut to the Turks receiving those coordinates, And it's a proper little road trip that they've got going on. We've got Elena, we've got Rude, we've got Reno, and then we've got Sung as well. So we've got a full-on Turks road trip about to happen, and I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be quite an enjoyable time going on a little road trip with the Turks. Now, Elena's quite concerned because she's heard all of this talk about how people don't leave the Temple of the Ancients. If you go there, you're done. You're locked in. So she's a little bit worried. And then when she finds out that Rufus is planning to attend, she's just like, what's this guy doing? Why is this guy so ludicrous? Why does he keep putting himself into these risks? But, you know, Rufus will do Rufus things, and we leave the Turks, cutting back to the Tiny Bronco, with Vincent getting the details and getting the coordinates that we need from the radio. So we've got everything that we need now. We just need to head to the Temple of the Ancients, but that is Chapter 13 stuff. Now, this video is huge, and it could have easily ended up being longer if we'd have dove a little bit deeper into some of the aspects, especially Loveless. That could have easily dragged out into like a 30, 40, 50-minute segment itself. We will do a video looking at Loveless in its entirety and kind of looking at the version of Loveless that we get in Crisis Core, as well as this version that we get in Rebirth, the G edition, which does have some differences, but in general, it seems to follow the same rough outline of Loveless. And these plays anyway, these are inspired by Loveless. The real story of Loveless, as far as we know it, is what we get in Crisis Core with the stone tablets and Genesis and everything like that. But it is quite interesting how the latter stages of the G edition, to where we take over and we're in charge, a lot of that is then very suggestive towards the events that happen later on in Rebirth, involving Sephiroth, Cloud, Aerith, etc. So yeah, it kind of does both. It kind of covers both bases. It kind of gives us the original Loveless and makes that nod towards Loveless from the OG and from Crisis Core, but at the same time, it weaves in the events that are going to take part in Rebirth and what's coming, basically. And that's pretty cool. I'm very into that. I'm also super into the Dio versus Don Corneo thing. That was just entertaining. I had a great time with that. The little Don Cactuars and Don Tomberries are amazing. I also quite like the details that we get around Wedge and what happened with him. And I know that that isn't strictly a side quest for this chapter, but I figured I'd throw it in there anyway. Especially with seeing GJ. You know, it just made sense. We see GJ, so we might as well talk about Neo and the others. It just works. And finally, I thought it was very interesting in the data. We do kind of get that moment where Aerith says that she's looking for Cloud, very similar to in the OG. And we get that moment where the real Cloud does kind of peek through a little bit, and she recognizes that. And I think it was a very cool moment. I think it was a very, very nice, cool moment. I was into it. But that's all of the side stuff. The chapter 12 is very much a side stuff chapter. I mean, you do have little bits of main stuff like the date and the Keystone and everything like that, but this is the chapter to clean up all your side stuff. Get it all out of the way, get it all done, get it all wrapped up, and then we can move on to chapter 13 and 14, which are pure main story. 100% main story. The Temple of the Ancients is going to be pretty crazy. We're going to be taking a big dive into the Temple of the Ancients. We're going to look at the murals and everything like that, and we're going to see what we can ascertain. It's going to be a fun one. I'm very much looking forward to doing chapter 13, but let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about chapter 12. Technically, I'm going to say this is under an hour long. Once I've added the intro and the outro, it won't be under an hour long, but my bit is under an hour long, so I'm counting it. I'm counting it. It is under an hour long. But yeah, thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the chapter. Like the video, subscribe for future content, give it a share, but more importantly than all of that, have a great day.